Hey everyone, and welcome to Reading. We are in Module 2, Lesson 2, and we're on Part 1. It's our first reading for Module 2 about space. And where we're reading at is we are in our blue book, which some of you have and some of you do not have. It's okay if you do not, because we have two versions of it. So one version of it is in your Google Classroom right now, and it is the Google Slideshow that is there. So there's a Google Slides with Module 2, Lesson 2, Part 1. It matches everything that we are doing right here. And you're going to be able to follow along with me as I read on the screen. I'll be reading Galileo's Starry Night. As I read Galileo's Starry Night, you're going to annotate in the chart below. So that means that you're going to write words that you don't know, something you notice, something surprising, and something you're wondering. Once you have all of those items, you will finish up with answering some of the questions with me in Zoom or in this video. So I'm going to get started with reading, or you can just listen to this link right here where they read it to you as well. Same scenario. So I'm going to get started. Make sure that you are with me, and you're going to be annotating below on the other piece. Let's go. Galileo's Starry Night. On a warm June evening in 1609, Galileo Galilei had a 45-year-old Italian mathematics teacher and father of three listened as a friend described the latest invention to hit Europe, a long tube containing two glass lenses called a spyglass. It makes faraway things appear close. We could use one of those here in Italy, the friend said. Perhaps you could try to build one if you're interested. Was he ever? Galileo loved trying to figure out how the world and the things in it worked. That very night, he leaped into the project with gusto. In a short time, he not only figured out how to construct a spyglass, he improved upon the existing model as well. When he later presented his device to the rulers of Venice, they marveled at how far it could see. The spyglass would be quite useful for spotting distant enemies, making it hard for anyone to launch a sneak attack. Galileo wasn't satisfied, however, and he kept fiddling with his telescope. As his fellow mathematician friend Giovanni di Vinciani had called, the word means far looker, he called it. He tried new adjustments and worked at grinding better lenses. Within a few months, he had a telescope that was 3 times more powerful than the first. By now, autumn had arrived, and evenings darkened early. One night, as the moon rose, Galileo pointed his telescope toward the sky. If it could see far on earth, why not see into the heavens as well? Who knew what the moon might look like up close? What Galileo saw astonished him. The moon was not perfectly smooth as it appeared from the naked eye. It was a bumpy moon. Its edges had ridges of darkness and pips of lights, and it was covered with what looked like craters, mountains, and valleys. Entranced by these unexpected details, Galileo drew a picture after picture of what he saw through the telescope. A craggy moon wasn't all that he discovered. Galileo could now see that the Milky Way, seemingly a bright cloud across the sky, was in fact made of millions of stars. He also noticed that while fixed stars of constellations look like twinkling lights, the wandering stars, or planets, seem to be solid spheres, like the moon. All through that December, Galileo peered into the night sky at what had never been seen before. Sometimes his hands shook with the cold. The chilled lens of his telescope fogged up whenever he put his eye near the glass, and he had to keep wiping it clear. On January 2nd, 1610, Galileo focused his gaze on Jupiter. He noticed 3 bright stars beside it and drew a sketch of them. The night sky, he looked again. The three stars had scooted to new positions. How odd, he thought. The following night, Galileo saw two stars. What was going on? A few nights later, he saw four. Galileo kept watching and recording his observations until he concluded that the dots were neither stars nor planets. They were of little moons circling Jupiter. Galileo wrote down his observations and thoughts in a book called The Starry Messenger. The book immediately sold out. People were very excited and troubled by his discoveries. Little moons circling not Earth but Jupiter? Our own moon, a bumpy one? Sightings like these could change how people thought about the universe. Some skeptics chose not to look through new telescopes. Others refused to believe what they saw. They insisted that Galileo put specks in the telescopes to trick people. Feverishly, Galileo built more telescopes, hoping to make the truth visible to everyone. But what kind of truth was this? Could you really trust a telescope? And what did it all mean? These early telescopes weren't perfect, but what they showed was true enough. The heavens were not flawless, nor did they revolve around the earth, as many believed. Instead, it looked like the many planets, including Earth, revolved around the sun. Those who lived in the 1600s were not quite ready for this scientific breakthrough. At the time, many people passionately believed Earth should be at the center of the universe. Galileo was ordered to stop writing about his observations and was imprisoned in his house. He was put on trial and his books were banned for 200 years. However, people had already begun to see what they had not been able to see before, and they started to ask questions. While some refused to let go of their old ideas, new and marvelous mysteries and discoveries awaited those who did. So, this gives us the idea of what is happening in Galileo's starry night. And it gives us some insight into why we're going to be reading about Galileo and the stories that came along with his discoveries. There's a few words here that might help you fill out your document. So you opened up this document called Module 2, Lesson 2, Part 1. We listened to the story, Galileo's Starry Night. Hopefully you chose some words you don't know. If you couldn't think of any words that you don't know while you were listening, here's a few here. Choose two of these words. So we have astonished, craggy, entranced, focused, marveled, marvelous, peered, skeptics, spheres, banned, feverishly, flawless, revolve. So choose two of those words that you're not familiar with and put them in this box. What's something you noticed about the story? What did Galileo do? What did he create? Was it his invention? Something that surprises you. What's something that surprises you? And something you're wondering. What's something you're wondering? Let's go into some questions. Let's answer them. So we're going to be answering these questions. Make sure that you have your document up as I discuss these with you. I know that if you're watching this video, you're not able to like talk back, but like let's think about what you would say. So try to talk it out with me, even though you're not in this like in a call with me or something like that. Like let's just think about the answers. Is the article an example of fiction or informational text? So, fiction being like a made up story, informational text being information that is real. What do you think? If you said it's informational text, you're correct. So, this is informational text. So, this is an informational text. How do you know? What does it talk about? Well, it talks about a real person, and it gives years. So when it gives historical information, that's going to be most likely something that is real. It talks about a real person, Galileo. It talks about real places, Italy, and it gives us some ideas of when this occurred. According to the article, where and when did he live? So going back to the story, we want to look for information that proves where and when he lived. So I'm not deleting that information that I have here because I don't want anybody to lose the information if they need to still type it. But we're going to be looking on a warm June evening in 1609. Galileo, a 45-year-old Italian mathematics teacher and a father of three, listened as a friend described latest invention to hit Europe. So he's an Italian, and he lived in 1600s, early 1600s, 1609. It shows he was 45 years old in 1609, so you would have to subtract 45 from 1609 to see when he was born, and that would put you in the 1500s. So as we go into this next part, he lived in Italy in the early 1600s. So he lived in the early 1600s in Italy. And that'll bring us to the next page. So hopefully you pause this video if you need those notes, and let's talk. What were some things that happened after Galileo pointed his telescope up at the sky? So what happened when he first looked up there? Did he lose interest? Did he gain interest? Did he not care? Was he curious? What happened when he saw it? He became more curious. It said he sat every night staring at the stars. It even talked about how he documented all the things that he saw. He drew pictures and wrote stories about it. So how were Galileo and Jacques Cousteau similar? So Galileo and Jacques Cousteau, he experienced the sea when he put the goggles on and he looked down. Galileo experienced space when he put the telescope to his eye and looked up. So both of them used a tool to explore a vast space or sea above or below them. So they both became curious. When they got to see with their tool. I think it's cool that they both had a tool that kind of started them on their curiosity voyage. So they both become curious because they had a tool that allowed them to see something that other people had not seen yet. And I think that's what's really cool about this. So we start to see that Galileo was pretty curious once he got to see the stars and the moon, and he saw things were different than he originally thought. So as you go through, just make sure that you turn this in by clicking turn in after you have all that filled out. And then tomorrow we'll discuss this reading a little bit more. Great job, guys.